Hello, my wise and experienced friends. Have you ever been betrayed by the very people you trusted most? The ones you raised, nurtured, and taught everything you know? Today, I'm sharing the powerful story of Judith Dawson, a 58-year-old widow who discovered her own children were drugging her tea, manipulating company finances, and planning to have her declared mentally incompetent, all to take control of the family business she built with her late husband. When her children saw just another aging mother they could push aside, they had no idea they were dealing with a woman who had been running a successful company for decades. They thought she was losing her mind, but she was quietly gathering evidence against them the entire time. Settle in for a story about family betrayal, business deception, and the quiet wisdom that comes from a lifetime of experience. Sometimes the most dangerous opponent is the parent you've completely underestimated. Before we begin, where are you watching from today? Let's connect in the comments below. I used to believe that if I loved my family enough, they would always value what I built for them. I never imagined that my own children, whom I raised with my trembling hands after their father died, would secretly plan to push me out of the company we created together. What they didn't know was that I had started putting my own plan in motion long before they made their move. "Mom, I've transferred the quarterly reports to your email," my daughter Angela said, her voice honey-sweet as she set a cup of tea beside my keyboard. "Why don't you look them over while I handle the client meeting? You should rest more." I smiled and nodded, watching her perfectly styled hair bounce as she walked away. The moment the door closed, I opened the hidden recording app on my phone and played back yesterday's office conversation. "How much longer are we going to pretend Mom still runs this place?" It was Angela's voice, sharp and impatient. "She barely understands the new contracts. Dad's been gone 3 years. It's our company now." My son Michael's deeper voice followed. "Just a little longer. Once we finalize the merger, we can suggest she retire. She'll have no choice once the papers are signed." "And if she refuses?" Angela asked. "Then we remind the board about her little memory lapses. Dr. Kenner already thinks she might be showing early signs of dementia." A diagnosis they had carefully orchestrated with a doctor who was Michael's golf buddy. I took a sip of the tea Angela had brought me, then quietly poured it into the potted plant beside my desk. They'd been slipping me sleeping pills for weeks, making me foggy during meetings, then documenting my concerning behavior. Such amateur moves from the children I taught everything they know. I opened my drawer and pulled out the real quarterly reports, the ones I had quietly assembled from accounting records they thought I couldn't access. The numbers told a clear story: funds being siphoned, accounts being manipulated, and a merger that would eliminate my voting rights while padding their offshore accounts. Before you think I'm just a bitter old woman imagining conspiracies, let me clarify something. Dawson Home Goods had been my dream long before it was theirs. My husband Robert and I built it from nothing, working double shifts and skipping vacations. When he died suddenly of a heart attack, I kept it going while raising 2 teenagers alone. I taught them the business, promoted them quickly, trusted them completely. My mistake. That evening, as I drove home to my too-quiet house, I felt a strange calm settle over me. The streetlights made patterns across my windshield as I thought about what needed to be done. If you stay with me, you'll see that sometimes the people who know you best are the ones who underestimate you most. Quiet ones observe everything, and patience can be a weapon when wielded correctly. Subscribe now to see how this mother turns the tables on her ungrateful children. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. My phone buzzed with a text from Angela. "Don't forget your medication, Mom. I can come over if you need help." So thoughtful, so concerned, my darling manipulative daughter. I texted back a grateful response and parked in my driveway. Inside, I went straight to my study and pulled out the folder I'd labeled Garden Club Notes. Inside were copies of every document I needed: original contracts, banking records, emails I'd forwarded to my personal account before they revoked my access. 3 months of careful collection, watching as my children thought they were watching me. I picked up a framed family photo from my desk: Robert, Angela, Michael, and me at the company's 20th anniversary celebration. Their smiles looked genuine then. Was it all just preparation for this betrayal, or had something changed? When had I become an obstacle rather than their mother? The doorbell rang, breaking my thoughts. Through the peephole, I saw Daniel Harper, Robert's old friend and our company's former legal counsel before my children replaced him with someone more progressive. I opened the door. "Judith," he said, his voice warm but his eyes serious. "I got your message. Are you sure about this?" I invited him in, served coffee in the good cups, and laid out everything I had discovered. Daniel listened without interrupting, his expression growing darker with each revelation. "They're your children, Judith," he finally said. "Are you certain you want to go this route?" I looked at the family portrait again. They stopped being my children the moment they decided I was disposable. But I'm not going to fight dirty like they are. I'm going to remind them exactly who taught them everything they know. Daniel smiled for the first time that evening. "Well then, I'd say they're in for quite an education." That night, I slept better than I had in months. The next morning, I dressed carefully in my sharpest suit, applied my makeup with precision, and drove to the office early. I wanted to be at my desk, perfectly composed, when they arrived. Angela came in first, surprise flickering across her face when she saw me already working. "Mom, you're here early. Is everything okay?" "Everything's fine, sweetheart," I said, signing the last of several documents. "Just catching up on some paperwork." "What are those?" she asked, eyeing the stack. I smiled. "Just putting things in order. Would you ask Michael to join us when he arrives? I'd like to discuss the Jensen account with both of you." She nodded, a slight furrow between her perfectly shaped eyebrows. I watched her walk away, already texting frantically to her brother. They had no idea what was coming, these children of mine who thought I was already halfway to senile. Pieces were in place. The board meeting was tomorrow. And as I sat there reviewing the actual quarterly reports, I felt something I hadn't experienced since Robert died. The pure, clean thrill of being underestimated. Michael arrived 30 minutes later, his expensive cologne announcing him before he appeared in my doorway. His face was a perfect mask of filial concern. "Mom, Angela said you wanted to see us? Everything okay with the Jensen account?" I gestured to the chairs across from my desk. "Close the door, please." They exchanged a quick glance as Michael shut the door. I took my time arranging papers, letting the silence build. Angela crossed her legs, uncrossed them. Michael checked his watch. "I've been having trouble sleeping lately," I began, my voice calm. "It's strange because I'm taking the pills Dr. Kenner prescribed, the ones you've been so diligent about reminding me to take." I pulled out a small plastic bag containing several white tablets. But when I had them tested, they weren't what the prescriptions said at all. Isn't that odd? Color drained from Angela's face. Michael stepped in smoothly. "Mom, what are you talking about? Why would you have your medication tested?" "Because I'm not experiencing memory problems, Michael. I'm experiencing betrayal." I placed a folder on the desk. "This contains the real financial records for the past year, not the altered versions you've been showing me and the board." Michael's jaw tightened. "You're confused again. Let me call Dr. Kenner." "Michael James Dawson," I said, using his full name like I did when he was 10 and caught lying. "I've already spoken with 3 board members about your creative accounting, and before you try to paint me as confused, they've seen the evidence." Angela found her voice. "Mom, you don't understand the pressures we're under to keep the company competitive. Sometimes we have to make difficult decisions. Like drugging your mother? Like planning to force me into retirement after the Westman merger." I pulled out another folder. "A merger, by the way, that I've already blocked." They both froze. I continued. "The board has concerns about the leadership direction, particularly after learning about certain offshore accounts that seem to be receiving company funds." "You had no right." Angela's perfect composure cracked. "This company would have died with Dad if we hadn't modernized it. The raw anger in her voice stunned me. This wasn't just about money or control. There was something deeper, something broken in how they saw me. "You think I've been blind to what the company needs?" I asked quietly. "I've been watching you both, waiting to see if you had the vision to truly lead. Instead, I found theft and deception." Michael leaned forward, suddenly all business. "What do you want, Mom? To humiliate us? To fire us? This is our legacy, too." "No, it's your inheritance, which is different. A legacy is earned." I stood up slowly. "I'm not firing you. Yet. But effective immediately, all financial decisions require my signature. The board has already approved this change." "They can't do that," Angela snapped. "They can when the majority shareholder requests it. And since your father left his shares to me, not to you directly as you've been telling people." I let the implications sink in. Michael's face darkened. "So that's it? You're taking back control?" "I never lost control, Michael. I just wanted to see how far you would go." I walked to the window, looking out at the company my husband and I had built. "Your father would be heartbroken." "Dad's dead," Angela said flatly. "And he always said the company would be ours someday." "Someday," I agreed. "When you were ready. Not when you decided to take it by force." I turned back to face my children, these beautiful strangers who shared my blood but apparently none of my values. Michael was calculating, I could see it in his eyes. Angela was seething. Neither showed an ounce of remorse. "You have a choice," I told them. "Work with me legitimately, learn to run this company with integrity, or clean out your desks today. I've already had the locks changed on your offices." The look that passed between them told me everything. They weren't sorry for what they'd done, they were sorry they'd been caught. "We built this place into what it is now," Michael said, his voice controlled but cold. "You've been coasting on Dad's reputation." The accusation stung more than I wanted to admit. "That's what you think? That I've just been warming a chair? Who do you think kept this place afloat when your father died? Who worked with suppliers when they threatened to pull out? Who secured the Phillips contract when everyone said it was impossible?" "That was years ago," Angela dismissed with a wave of her hand. "Things are different now." "Yes, they are," I agreed. "Because I trained you both to take over someday and somehow raised children who think betrayal is a business strategy." As they left my office, anger radiating from them like heat, I felt oddly hollow. I'd won this round, but at what cost? These were my children, the only family I had left. That evening, as I worked late reviewing contracts they'd tried to hide from me, I heard a gentle knock. Daniel stood in the doorway, 2 cups of coffee in hand. "You did it," he said, placing 1 cup on my desk. "How does victory feel?" I looked up at him, suddenly exhausted. "Like loss." He sat down across from me. "Judith, I've known you for 30 years. You're one of the strongest people I've ever met. But even you can't fix everything. They're my children, Daniel." "Yes, and they're also adults who made terrible choices." He leaned forward. "Robert wouldn't want you to let them destroy what you built together." I picked up the coffee, letting its warmth seep into my hands. Did I fail them somehow? When did money become more important than family? Daniel didn't answer right away. When he did, his voice was gentle. "Sometimes people show you who they are, and the hardest part is believing them." As I drove home that night, rain tapping on my windshield like impatient fingers, I thought about what came next. This wasn't over. Angela and Michael wouldn't simply accept defeat. They'd been planning too long, too carefully. I pulled into my driveway and sat there, watching the rain streak down the glass. The house seemed darker than usual, emptier. For the first time since Robert died, I felt truly alone. My phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. "You won't win this." I wasn't surprised. The game had just begun. The next morning, I arrived at the office to find staff whispering in clusters, conversations stopping abruptly when they saw me. In the break room, Janet from accounting couldn't meet my eyes. "Is there something I should know, Janet?" I asked gently. She hesitated. "There are rumors, Mrs. Dawson, about your health. Michael sent an email this morning." I thanked her and walked to my office, fury building with each step. On my computer was the company-wide email, concerns about leadership transitions, with carefully worded suggestions about my declining capacity and the need for stability during this difficult time. They were trying to turn my staff against me. Two could play that game. I picked up my phone and dialed our largest client. "Thomas, it's Judith Dawson. I need a favor." By noon, word had spread that I'd personally secured a 5-year renewal with Thomas Jenkins, complete with improved terms. The whispers changed tone. My children might have been plotting, but I had been building relationships for decades. Michael appeared in my doorway, his smile tight. "Congratulations on the Jenkins renewal. The team worked hard on that proposal." "What team, Michael?" "The proposal your assistant shredded last week? The one I had to recreate from memory last night?" His smile faltered. "Mom, you're clearly under stress. Why don't you take a few days off? The board meeting isn't until Friday." "I'm exactly where I need to be." I held his gaze until he looked away first. After he left, I opened my private email to find messages from 3 more board members expressing concern about the situation. My children were working the phones, spinning their narrative. I needed to move faster. Called Daniel. "I need access to the trust documents. Today." That afternoon, as Angela conducted the weekly team meeting, pointedly not inviting me, I met with our new auditors in the conference room down the hall. They were young, sharp, and had no connections to my children. "Everything from the past 18 months, I instructed. "Every transaction, every approval, every change to our financial systems." When Angela discovered the audit, she came storming into my office, her perfect composure cracking. "You have no right. This is a witch hunt." "It's standard procedure," I said calmly. "Unless there's something you're worried they'll find?" Her face gave her away. There was definitely something. "Why are you doing this?" she demanded. "We're family." "Yes, we are," I agreed. "Which makes your betrayal that much worse." For a moment, something flashed in her eyes, pain, regret, I couldn't tell. Then it was gone, replaced by cold determination. "You can't win against both of us," she said quietly. "The board respects us. The staff trusts us. You're just old news." The words stung more than I wanted to admit. "Is that what your father would say? The man who built this company from nothing. Dad's been dead for 3 years, she snapped. "And he was building this for us, not for you to hold over our heads forever." After she left, I sat at my desk feeling every one of my 58 years. Was that how they saw me? A gatekeeper denying them their birthright? Had I held on too long, made them feel they had to push me out to claim what they felt was theirs? No. They could have talked to me, worked with me, shown me they were ready to lead with integrity. Instead, they chose deception. My phone buzzed. "Daniel, found something. Coming over." 20 minutes later, he spread documents across my desk, his expression grim. "The trust Robert set up before he died. They've been trying to access it, but the terms are clear. It transfers to the children only if you willingly retire or are deemed incompetent." So, the memory problems, the medication, it all made horrible sense. They were trying to have me declared incompetent. Daniel nodded, his face lined with concern. "Judith, this goes beyond business disagreements. This is elder abuse. We should go to the police." I shook my head. "They're still my children. I want to handle this my way." That evening, I did something I hadn't done in months. I invited them both to dinner at the house they grew up in. To my surprise, they accepted. I spent the afternoon cooking Robert's favorite pot roast, the recipe he'd loved so much he'd ask for it on his birthday every year. Setting the table with our family china felt like opening a time capsule, memories of happier times, of a family that functioned with love instead of strategy. They arrived together, Angela in a sleek black dress, Michael in a suit he hadn't bothered to wear to the office. Both looked wary, as if expecting an ambush. "No business tonight," I said, taking their coats. "Just family." Dinner was a careful dance of polite conversation. We talked about Angela's new condo renovation, Michael's golf game, safe topics that wouldn't lead to confrontation. For a moment, watching them laugh over some shared joke, I could almost believe we were still a family. After dessert, I brought out a bottle of Robert's favorite scotch and 3 glasses. "Dad's special reserve," Michael said, surprised. "You've been saving this?" "For the right moment." I poured 3 fingers in each glass. "Your father would want us to share it." We moved to the living room, the scotch warming our voices, softening the hard edges between us. I let them talk, watching their faces in the lamplight, wondering where I'd gone wrong. Finally, when the bottle was half empty and their guards had lowered, I spoke. "I know about the trust," I said quietly. "I know why you needed me declared incompetent." The room went silent. Angela's glass froze halfway to her lips. "Mom," Michael started. I held up my hand. "I'm not here to accuse. I want to understand. When did I become your enemy instead of your mother?" Question hung in the air between us. Angela looked away first. "It wasn't like that," she said finally. "It wasn't about you." "Then what was it about?" Michael set his glass down. "Control. Security. Dad always said the company would be ours, but then he died and everything stayed in your hands. Year after year, we kept waiting for you to step aside." "I was waiting for you to be ready," I said softly. "Ready by whose standards?" Angela's voice rose slightly. "We've double profits in 3 years. The Westman merger would have put us on the map nationally. But you kept second-guessing everything, holding us back." "I wasn't holding you back. I was trying to protect what your father built." "From us?" Michael asked, his voice heavy with resentment. "His own children?" I looked at them both, these strangers wearing my children's faces. "From your shortcuts. From your willingness to compromise on quality, on ethics, on everything your father valued except profit." "Business has changed, Mom," Angela said, her tone softening slightly. "Dad's approach wouldn't work today. His approach built this company. His approach is why we have loyal customers who've been with us for decades." I leaned forward. "Do you know why Thomas Jenkins renewed his contract today? 'Cause 20 years ago, your father stayed up 3 nights straight fixing an order that wasn't right. Not because it was profitable, but because it was the right thing to do." They exchanged glances, something unspoken passing between them. "What do you want from us?" Michael finally asked. "The truth." Starting with where the money went, Angela tensed. "What money?" "The $1.2 million that disappeared from the development fund." I watched their faces carefully. The money that should have gone into the new production line but somehow ended up elsewhere. Michael's face hardened. "The audit. That's what this is really about." "No," I corrected him. "This is about trust. Family. The values I thought I taught you." Angela stood abruptly. "I need some air." She walked out to the back porch, leaving Michael and me alone. He stared into his glass for a long moment. "It wasn't supposed to go this far," he said finally. "We just needed access to the trust to cover some investments that went wrong. Once the merger went through, everything would balance out." "So you decided to drug me? To try to have me declared incompetent?" The betrayal still felt fresh, still cut deep. "Your own mother?" He wouldn't meet my eyes. "I never wanted to hurt you." "But you did." I stood up. And tomorrow, at the board meeting, I'm going to have to decide what to do about it. Michael looked up sharply. What does that mean? It means I still have a choice to make. I gathered the glasses. And so do you. After they left, I sat alone in Robert's chair, wishing I could ask him what to do. The family portrait on the mantel seemed to mock me now, for smiling faces in a lie of a frame. My phone rang. It was Daniel. I just got a call from Michael, he said, his voice tense. Judith, whatever you're planning for tomorrow, be careful. They're desperate. I hung up and walked to the window. Side, the neighborhood was quiet, houses dark except for the occasional blue flicker of a television. Somewhere out there, my children were plotting against me. Again. This time, I would be ready. I barely slept that night. As the first rays of sunrise filtered through my curtains, I sat at my kitchen table drinking coffee, surrounded by papers and photographs. The family portrait still haunted me, those smiling faces, Robert's arm around my shoulder, the children looking up at him with adoration. We were happy then. At least I thought we were. The board meeting was scheduled for 9 a.m. I arrived at 7:30, wanting the quiet of the empty office to gather my thoughts. To my surprise, Daniel was already there, waiting in the parking lot. You shouldn't be alone this morning, he said simply, falling into step beside me. We took the elevator up in silence. As the doors opened, I noticed the lights were already on in the conference room. We were not the first to arrive. Michael and Angela sat at the table, both impeccably dressed, folders neatly arranged in front of them. 3 board members I recognized as their strongest allies sat with them. They looked up when we entered, a flash of surprise quickly masked. Mom, Michael said, rising. We didn't expect you so early. Clearly, I replied, setting down my briefcase. Since you started without me. Just some preliminary discussions, one of the board members, James, offered smoothly. Nothing formal. I smiled thinly. Of course. By 8:45, the room was full. 10 board members, my children, Daniel, and me. I sat at the head of the table, Robert's old seat. Angela had tried to take it once after he died, but stopped when she saw my face. Some battles weren't worth fighting. Before we begin the official meeting, I said, I'd like to address the email that was sent yesterday regarding my capacity to lead this company. Michael shifted in his seat. Mom, nobody is questioning. Several of you received calls expressing concerns about my mental state, I continued, ignoring him. I want to assure the board that I am perfectly sound of mind as my doctor, my real doctor, not the one my son plays golf with, has confirmed. I slid copies of a medical report toward each board member. What I am concerned about, however, is the financial state of the company under my children's influence. Angela leaned forward. With all due respect, Mother, this isn't the agenda we agreed on. The agenda has changed. I nodded to Daniel, who distributed another set of documents. These are the findings of an independent audit conducted yesterday. I think you'll find them concerning, particularly pages 4 through 7. The room fell silent as the board members read through the report. James was the first to look up, his face grim. These are serious allegations. $1.2 million missing from the development fund? Not missing, Michael interjected quickly. Reallocated. For the merger preparations. Reallocated to an offshore account in the Caymans? Another board member asked, her voice sharp. Without board approval? Angela's perfectly manicured nails drummed on the table. This is a misunderstanding. If my mother had consulted us before ordering this witch hunt. I did consult you, I said quietly. Last night, over your father's scotch. You had your chance to be honest then. The room grew tense. Board members exchanged glances, papers shuffled. I waited, letting the weight of the moment build. There's more, I finally said. Page 12 outlines the systematic attempt to have me declared incompetent in order to trigger the release of the family trust. a trust worth considerably more than the company itself. This is absurd. Michael stood up, his face flushed. Mom's been under a lot of stress lately. She's imagining conspiracies, making accusations. Is that why you replaced my medication with sedatives? I asked, my voice steady. To make me appear confused? To reinforce this story about my mental decline? A shocked murmur ran through the room. One of the older board members, Martha, who had known Robert and me since the beginning, looked at my children with unconcealed disgust. Robert would be ashamed, she said simply. Angela's composure finally cracked. You don't get to talk about Dad. None of you do. He promised us this company would be ours. He promised. The raw pain in her voice silenced the room. I looked at my daughter, really looked at her, and for the first time saw past the perfect exterior to the hurt beneath. When? I asked gently. When did he promise you that? She wiped angrily at her eyes. The night before he died. He said he was going to start stepping back, that it was time for us to take over. That everything he built was for us. Michael nodded. He said he was tired. That he'd done his part and now it was our turn. The words hit me like a physical blow. Robert had never told me any of this. We talked about retirement vaguely someday, but never about stepping away from the company completely. He'd never hinted he was ready to hand it over to the children. Unless he knew. Unless the heart attack wasn't as sudden as we thought. Unless he was trying to prepare them because he sensed time was running out. Why didn't you tell me this? I asked. Would it have mattered? Michael's voice was bitter. You took control like he had never said a word. Like his wishes meant nothing. I closed my eyes briefly, trying to process this new reality. Had I misunderstood everything? Had my grief blinded me to what Robert really wanted? No. Even if Robert had promised them leadership, he would never have approved of their methods. Your father wanted you to lead, I said finally. But he would have expected you to earn it, not take it through deception and theft. The board meeting continued for 3 more hours. The missing money was discussed, the merger reviewed, and ultimately rejected. By the end, it was clear that changes would need to be made. Major changes. After the others had filed out, only my children and Daniel remained in the conference room. The 3 of us sat in silence for a long moment. What happens now? Angela finally asked, her voice small. That depends on you, I replied. The money needs to be returned. All of it. Michael nodded slowly. And after that? After that, we have a choice. We can tear this company apart fighting each other, or we can find a way forward. Together. You'd still work with us? After everything? Angela sounded genuinely surprised. You're my children. That hasn't changed. I gathered my papers, suddenly exhausted. But trust has to be rebuilt. On all sides. Over the next 6 months, we did just that. The money was returned. Michael and Angela were removed from their executive roles temporarily, but given the chance to earn them back. I started teaching them what they had never bothered to learn from me, the deeper values that had made the company successful, not just the strategies for profit. Slowly, painfully, we began to heal. Not just as business partners, but as family. 1 year to the day after the board meeting, I invited them to dinner again. This time when they arrived, a new family portrait hung on the wall, taken just a week before, the 3 of us together at the company's 30th anniversary celebration. It's not the same without Dad, Angela said quietly, looking at the picture. No, I agreed. It never will be. But it's ours. After dinner, I handed them each an envelope. Inside was a letter outlining my decision to step into an advisory role, giving them joint leadership of the company, with conditions. Clear safeguards, mandatory board approvals for major decisions, and quarterly reviews. Are you sure about this? Michael asked, his voice catching slightly. Your father wanted you to lead, I said. And you're finally ready. They left that night not as the plotting strangers who had tried to steal my company, but as my children, flawed, still learning, but worthy of a second chance. Later, as I sat in Robert's chair looking at the new family portrait, I thought about what I had learned. That trust, once broken, leaves permanent cracks. That love sometimes means setting boundaries, not just offering forgiveness. That family businesses are about more than money. They're about legacy, values, and the complicated love that binds generations together. Daniel called just as I was getting ready for bed. "How did it go?" he asked. "Better than expected," I replied, smiling despite myself. They were grateful. "And you? How are you feeling about stepping back?" I looked around the house that felt a little less empty these days. "Ready. It's time." He hesitated, then asked, "Would you like to get dinner tomorrow? Not to discuss business or your children or the company. Just dinner." For a moment I said yes. The next morning I woke up looking forward to the day for the first time in years. I had lost Robert, nearly lost my children, and come close to losing myself. But somehow, against all odds, I had found a way back to what mattered most. Not the company, not even the legacy, but the simple truth that sometimes the most important business of all is family. I hope you enjoyed today's story. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss more stories like this. Leave a like and comment below what you thought of the story. See you in the next video.